The devil doesn't need to destroy your life in one dramatic moment. He doesn't need fire, chaos, or some obvious sign that darkness has entered the room. Most of the time, he works quietly. A small thought planted at the right moment. A whisper that sounds suspiciously like your own voice. You're too late. You're not ready. People like you don't change. You've already ruined too much. Nothing loud, nothing theatrical. Just enough doubt to make you hesitate when life asks you to move. And maybe you've felt it. A strange resistance whenever you get close to becoming who you know you could be. You decide to change, and suddenly, old temptations start knocking. You begin healing, and memories you thought were buried rise to the surface. You find a little confidence, and someone appears to remind you of every mistake you've ever made. Almost as if something understands that keeping you trapped isn't about building stronger walls. It's about convincing you the door was never open. Here's what the devil hopes you never realize. The parts of your life that made you feel disqualified may be the very parts preparing you for your purpose. Your wounds aren't proof that you were forgotten. Your questions aren't proof that you've lost your way. Even the seasons that broke you may have been shaping something in you that comfort never could. Once you see that, shame loses its grip. Fear becomes easier to recognize. And the life you thought was falling apart begins to look more like a life being rearranged. You've probably spent years looking at certain experiences as evidence against yourself. Maybe childhood taught you to stay quiet because speaking up caused trouble. Maybe love felt conditional, so you learned to perform for approval. Maybe you became the responsible one, the peacemaker, the person who could read a room before anyone else had even noticed the tension. Back then, those habits helped you survive. But survival skills have a strange way of following you into places where they're no longer needed. A shield carried for too long eventually becomes heavy. Darkness loves when you confuse what happened to you with who you are. There's a difference though, a deep one. Being rejected doesn't make you unworthy. Being betrayed doesn't make you foolish. Failing doesn't make you a failure. Yet pain speaks in permanent language. It says, always, never, everyone, no one. One painful relationship becomes proof that nobody can be trusted. One missed opportunity becomes evidence that your chance has passed. One bad chapter starts pretending it knows how the whole story ends. But look more closely at what those hard years developed in you. Perhaps you can sense what people are feeling without them saying a word. Maybe you notice patterns others overlook. Maybe you can sit beside someone in pain without rushing them, judging them, or trying to fix everything. Those qualities usually aren't learned in easy rooms. Compassion often grows where suffering once lived. Discernment tends to form after deception. Courage isn't born from never being afraid. It's built each time fear says, "Stay down," and something deeper answers, "Not yet." Picture a piece of stained glass before the light reaches it. Up close it looks broken, hundreds of separate fragments, rough edges held together by lines that seem almost too dark. Then sunlight passes through, and suddenly the fractures become part of the beauty. Nothing had to pretend it was never broken. The light simply revealed that brokenness wasn't the end of its meaning. Your life can work the same way. Healing doesn't erase the past. It changes what the past is allowed to become. And once pain becomes wisdom instead of identity, the devil loses one of his oldest weapons, convincing you to hate the very person God is trying to restore. Once you stop believing your pain disqualifies you, another battle becomes visible, a quieter one, the battle over identity. Not your name, your job, or the role other people expect you to play. Something deeper. Who are you when nobody is applauding? Who are you when plans fail? When people misunderstand you? When the version of life you worked so hard to build suddenly no longer fits? Most people never ask those questions because daily life can keep them comfortably distracted. Bills need paying, messages need answering. There's always another video, another crisis, another task waiting for attention. Noise can become a hiding place. And honestly, sometimes staying busy feels safer than sitting still long enough to hear what your soul has been trying to say. Silence has a way of exposing the distance between the life you're living and the life you know you're meant to live. The devil hopes you'll build your identity from things that can be taken away. Approval, status, beauty, success, relationships, being needed, being admired, even being seen as the strong one. None of those things are evil, but they make terrible foundations. People change, careers end, bodies age, applause fades faster than anyone expects. When identity depends on unstable things, fear becomes your landlord. You start paying rent in the form of anxiety, overworking, people-pleasing, and constantly proving that you deserve the space you occupy. Rock bottom often arrives when that false identity can no longer hold you. Maybe the relationship ends, and without that person, you don't know who you are. Maybe the business collapses, and the title that once made you feel important disappears overnight. Maybe success arrives, but the emptiness follows you into the room. Moments like those feel cruel while you're living through them. Yet sometimes life has to remove the costume before you're willing to meet the person underneath. What feels like losing everything may actually be the moment you stop belonging to everything that was slowly causing you to lose yourself. After the old identity begins to crack, something else starts happening. You become more sensitive to meaning. Ordinary moments feel less ordinary. A conversation lands at exactly the right time. A book finds you when you're finally ready to understand it. The same idea keeps returning, no matter how often you dismiss it. Maybe you feel drawn to help a certain kind of person create something, teach something, heal something, or speak about what everyone else seems afraid to name. You try to move on, but the calling follows. That doesn't mean every coincidence is a secret message or every emotion is a divine instruction. Wisdom still matters, patience matters, reality matters. But when a desire keeps returning, not as an impulsive craving, but as a steady inner pressure, it deserves your attention. Purpose rarely arrives with flashing lights and a complete map. More often, it begins as a small discomfort with the life you've accepted, a quiet sense that you've been living below your capacity, a feeling that says, there's more in you and you know it. Your natural gifts are often clues, not necessarily the skills that impress the most people, but the abilities that feel almost too ordinary to you because they've always been there. You know how to bring calm into tense rooms. You explain complicated ideas in ways people can understand. Children trust you. Strangers tell you things they've never told anyone else. You can see possibilities where others see dead ends. Maybe you make music, build systems, tell stories, organize chaos, or notice the person standing alone. Gifts don't always arrive looking important. Seeds rarely resemble the trees they'll become. And here's where the struggle intensifies. Because the moment you begin moving toward purpose, resistance often rises. Old habits suddenly feel louder. Doubt gets creative. Delays become discouraging. People who were comfortable with the smaller version of you may call your growth selfish, unrealistic, or strange. Don't rush to make them villains. Sometimes your transformation simply confronts the places where they've stopped transforming. Still, you have to recognize the pattern. Every step toward alignment threatens whatever benefited from your confusion. The devil doesn't fear your potential in theory. He fears your potential becoming disciplined, surrendered, and real. There's a dangerous misunderstanding around purpose. People hear words like calling or chosen and assume they're being told they're better than everyone else. But purpose isn't a crown placed on your head so you can look down on people. It's a responsibility placed in your hands so you can serve them. Everyone carries something, a gift, a lesson, a way of bringing light into places that have forgotten what light feels like. Yet not everyone chooses to develop what they've been given. Being called doesn't mean the path will be easy. Usually, it means comfort can no longer satisfy you in the same way. You might try to return to the old life, and for a while it may even work. You laugh at the right moments. You show up. You keep the schedule. From the outside, everything looks normal. Inside, though, there's a quiet ache. Not because the life is terrible, but because it no longer tells the truth about who you're becoming. Once your soul has tasted alignment, distraction starts losing its flavor. Ancient wisdom often describes evil not merely as something that attacks from outside, but as something that divides within. One part of you knows, another part negotiates. One part wants freedom, another keeps reaching for the familiar cage because at least the cage is predictable. That inner division is where so many lives are delayed. You wait for fear to disappear before taking the step, not realizing courage often arrives after you begin moving. You wait for certainty, but certainty is usually a reward for obedience, not a requirement for it. Choice is where your power returns. You may not be able to rewrite the past, but you can decide what the past produces in you. You may not control who misunderstood you, left you, or failed to love you well, but you can refuse to keep repeating their treatment through the way you speak to yourself. You can pray. You can seek help. You can tell the truth. You can develop the gift. You can leave what keeps shrinking you. You can take one honest step before the whole road becomes visible. Heaven rarely asks for the entire journey at once. Usually it asks for the next faithful move. The devil hopes you never realize that he cannot create your shame, your fear, or your self-hatred without your continued agreement. He can suggest the lie, but you have to keep repeating it. He can point toward your wounds, but you decide whether they become prisons or places where wisdom grows. He can remind you of who you were, but he has no authority to define who you're becoming. Your greatest awakening may not be discovering that darkness has been fighting you. It may be discovering how long you've been helping it by believing every thought that told you to stay small. So stop waiting for another sign. Look at the life you've already lived. Look at what survived. Look at what keeps calling you forward. Take the lesson from the pain, uncover the gift inside the struggle, and bring it into the world where someone else may need it. Don't spend another year asking whether you're worthy of the assignment. Become willing, become honest, become available. The door was never locked. Your hand has been resting on the handle the entire time. And now that you know, the only question left is whether you'll finally open it.